everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video must drop for the first time in a very long time. As always, the video presented by FanDuel Canada, North America's #1 sportsbook. But as we get closer to the playoffs, the trade deadline in the NHL just passed as well. So look at some rosters, look at some players that maybe not as useful in fantasy hockey anymore. The roles have either diminished. Talk about some players and some suspensions as well. We've got 6 players to drop off your fantasy hockey team. Let's get into them. All right, so the first guy we're going to drop, and if you've been living under a rock NHL news-wise, you would have already heard about this, but Aaron Ekblad, suspended for 20 games, will be out for the rest of the regular season, deeming him pretty much useless to your fantasy hockey team at this point. If you're looking for a replacement on Florida, obviously the first guy that steps up is Seth Jones. Not going to be super easy, obviously, to get him on your team at this point if you don't already own him. If you're looking at guys on the waiver wire to kind of fill in for Ekblad, in my most recent must-add video, Darren Radish has recently been elevated to the first power play on the Lightning. He's been scoring a lot, getting a lot more time in the offensive zone as well. The Islanders as well, maybe Autumn Boakfist or like a guy like Tony DeAngelo if they're available in your league. But yeah, super unfortunate for Ekblad and the Florida Panthers. Out for 20 games. Will probably leak into the playoffs as well because I believe the Panthers have 18 games remaining on their schedule when the suspension got named. But yeah, those are some replacements. Seth Jones certainly gets the biggest bump in terms of fantasy hockey value on the Panthers and on that defensive unit, and we'll see kind of how the rest plays out. All right, the next guy we're dropping, Jake DeBrusk on the Vancouver Canucks. To be honest, it's hard to not want to drop everybody on this team other than like Quinn Hughes and like Philip Hronek. But his last 6 games played at even strength, he has 8 shots, creating little to no offense. He has 0 points. He has 1 power play goal over his last 6 games. He's -6 over that span as well. He played just 13 minutes in their last game against Dallas. He got criticized by Rick Tocchet along with Elias Peterson and Brock Besser. He's currently playing on that second line right now with Philip Hedl and Jonathan Lekkerimäki playing on that first power play as well. Vancouver's offense just sucks ass. Maybe this call out from Tocchet revitalizes him, but it's fantasy hockey and it's been too long for him to be producing at this shit of a rate to continue to hold him on your team, especially on a Vancouver team that does not score. So you got to get rid of him. The next guy you're dropping, Blake Coleman on the Calgary Flames. There's probably, like Vancouver, maybe a couple guys, depending on how many people are in your league that you could drop. But Blake Coleman, 31% rostered, should definitely not be 31% rostered. I understand if you're in bangers leagues and you need him for hits, but like he has pretty much no points over his last 8 games. He's also outside the top 60 in hits this year, so he's not like the most valuable player you can add in like a bangers league right now. But yeah, just really producing very little offense as the Calgary Flames right now are on this kind of drought of offense like Vancouver is. But he's playing on the second power play. He's playing on the second line with Backlund, but Backlund and Coleman aren't the duo they were 3 years ago in Calgary when Backlund was shooting a ton and creating a ton of offense. They are playing with Farabee, but those 2 players gone a little bit older and it's starting to show as well. He's still playing on that first penalty kill, but obviously that doesn't add too much value in terms of fantasy hockey unless you're purely looking for blocks. And then another guy on Calgary that I consider dropping, his roster percentage is a lot lower, but Igor Sharangovich, 12% roster in Yahoo leagues right now, I would consider dropping him as well. His role and his value, his play has not been near the same level as we saw last year. All right, another defenseman we're going to be dropping, Owen Power on the Buffalo Sabres. 28% rostered right now in Yahoo Fantasy Hockey leagues. He's pointless in his last 7 games. He's -7 over that span as well. Buffalo just not headed in the right direction. Continues to seem like they don't know what they're doing. Rasmus Dahlin, it seems like there's a rumor going around now that if they don't make any moves or do anything this offseason that he's going to be gone as well. There are better options out there at defense, and I named some of them when I was talking about Aaron Ekblad than Owen Power. Buffalo's struggling to score, which is weird, but certainly apart from the top 5 guys, which is like the top pair or the top defensive pair, and then Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Josh Norris maybe will start to get involved a little bit more. Those are really the only guys that are getting points. JJ Peterka as well. Outside of that, it's really hard. Like Jason Zucker has completely fell off as well. Owen Power was having a really good stretch, but if you've continued to own him in the month of March, he's certainly just hurt your fantasy team more than it's helped. All right, another defenseman, Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I would consider dropping him, 24% rostered. Again, I think there's better options out there. We're seeing right now another shift for like the first offensive defenseman on this Leafs team. Riley was really struggling all year, certainly struggling in January, but now has certainly started to figure it out. If you look at Riley's last 7 games played, he has 7 points. The Leafs went through a little bit of like a scoring rut recently, but Riley was still a guy who was able to produce some points. Ekman-Larsson, on the other hand, his last 7 games played, 3 points and his -4. And then also his last 5 games, he's pointless and his -6. So Craig Berube, obviously Both of these guys are on the second power play right now with, I think, 5 forwards going on that first power play. But if we do see a defenseman leak onto that first power play, at this point, I think it's going to be Morgan Riley. And when Chris Tanev does come back for the Leafs, I think we're going to see OEL move down to that last pair. So we'll see how much he's really going to be used. It's going to be obviously a lot in offensive situations, but will his ice time be enough to really justify sustaining a fantasy spot on your roster? All right, and the last guy, Shane Pinto. I've talked a lot about him, honestly, in must-adds, but now with the addition of Dylan Cousins, I can confidently say that Shane Pinto will not be fantasy relevant for the rest of the season as well. With Cousins coming in, it just firmly bumps him out of any sort of fantasy hockey relevance. Before, like Josh Norris and Pinto, Josh Norris was hurt all the time. Pinto moved up and down the lineup, but with, you know, Stützle and Cousins as your main 1C and 2C, and Pinto not even on either penalty or power play right now and just the first penalty kill, his scoring is going to come in bunches and inconsistent bunches. Ottawa's already not a strong enough team at 5-on-5 and even strength to justify owning other players on this team. Now Pinto can certainly be dropped. You know, Giroux is also in that conversation as well. I think on the Sens, I think it's worth owning Cousins at this point. Like, take the post-Sabres bump as much as you can and kind of relish in it. But Tkachuk and Stützle are definitely two guys you're going to want to obviously hold on to. Chabot's starting to play really well, or is having a good year all around, and Jake Sanderson too. But Pinto is not someone I'm going to want to hold on to. All right, so those are the must-drop fantasy hockey players for Week 21 as we head into Week 22 and head into the fantasy hockey playoffs. Obviously, good luck to everyone who's participating in those fantasy hockey playoffs early. If your week's starting now, good luck. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll continue to hit you guys with some fantasy hockey playoff advice videos. I'll see you guys next time.